Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Varsity Aces Live. I am NorthJersey.com high school sports columnist Darren Cooper. And tonight, we're going to talk about some things that are going to work in high school sports this upcoming year. And we have some very special guests, a good panel tonight. From the record in NorthJersey.com, my dear colleagues, Mr. Paul Schwartz and Mr. Sean Farrell, and our coaches extraordinaire, Indian Hills track coach and meet official. And how many Hall of Fames are you in, Rodak? We'll have to ask you that later. And the one and only Denis Jelcic from Lyndhurst. And we're going to start with Denis. Denis, how are you tonight? Coach Denis, how are you tonight? Let's pick it up with Mr. Rodak here. We got technical difficulties. The Hall of Fame coach Brian Rodak and the Hall of Fame reporter Paul Schwartz. Brian, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing all right. You know, just every day seems to be changing what the season's going to be.
I hear that. I hear that. Well, Schwa, you know what to do.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian, how has this preseason been different than in the past for you?
Well, actually, as far as the coaching wise, the kids are basically they're doing the same thing they've always done. You know, there's summer running. We just guide them. You know, we steer the boat. They do. You know, they do all the labor. But the thing that's different is on the meet management. You know, running the meets. Every day you come up and there's new rules to try to go. What we're trying to do, you know, right now Darlington seems to be unavailable to North Jersey, so we're going to try to use Garrett Mountain as much as possible. We're going to kind of mirror the state's plan for 2-hour blocks, and we figured on invitationals that we would bring up about 12 to 13 teams at a time, you know, because some of the schools are small, and we'd run them. They get out of there, like, you know, we'll have a 9 a.m. session, 11 a.m., and a 1 p.m. And
now, when you're saying Darlington may be unavailable, why don't you, I know we've talked about it, but what's the issue with Darlington right now?
Well, they've done some construction up on the upper lake, you know, where we used to run across the sand twice there. They built a retaining wall because the sand was running back into the upper lake, you know, for their activities during the summer. The park's been very well, good to us. They made a little path that we could go around, and it doesn't seem like there'll be any problem with that, you know, running the meet there. But as of right now, they've told us that the dates I requested, which were in October, are unavailable.
Are they? As far as you know, is the construction actually going on now, or are they going to wait until the Labor Day is started?
No, well, they started a lot already. That was done before. You know, they just went to swimming a couple weeks ago, and the lower lake. So the upper lake, they were doing construction. It was just a regular park until probably mid-July before they allowed swimming up there.
Okay, so obviously you're in contact with the people up there. Now, if we are cleared, are you going to have to redesign the course, or is the course going to be the same?
Nah, not much. Just, you know, a little bit, a little tweak here. I mean, through the years, you know, as they've removed the tree or did some rock work, you know, border wall type of stuff, the course has changed slightly. I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Now, what about the state is, at least the last that I saw, the state had said that cross country is allowed 1 dual meet and 1 invitational a week or 2 dual meets a week. I'm assuming that's still the way it stands right now. Clearly, as a competitive cross country team, that's enough for you. It's not you may not even use that many dates. Am I right? You don't really want to run the kids that often.
Yeah, you know, your good kids, exactly. You know, you want to go out early, you know, get a feel for a course, you know, but the young kids, you know, they need to race. You know, they need to learn, you know, how to be competitive, how to race. and those races are most important. I know the NJIC is basically doing a 2-meet format this fall. They're doing 1 meet for underclassmen and then 1 meet for their championships. They're having no dual meets, and they're kind of counting on me, and our group to run Saturday meets so that, there's something for their teams to go to, during the week. I mean, or on the weekends.
So
Go ahead, Dan.
How are we going to try to maintain like some level of competition, with such a limited schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the teams that enter those, the invitationals, we can try to put them in, size-wise schools into their group. So,
Yeah.
if we got a lot of big schools, we put them all together and they'll run together during their 2-hour block. Towards the end of the last 2 meets that I kind of scheduled up at Garrett, since Bergen County canceled their Bergen County tournaments, we figured we'd invite the Big North schools, the NJIC schools,
Right.
throw in North Bergen, Memorial, Union City, schools that come to our meets that we run all the time, and have like a little North Jersey championship, varsity only. We'll bring the schools up, divide them up in division, and we'll take the top 10 teams overall from those races and bring them back the following week for like a North Jersey meet of champs.
I can tease the both of you. What do we got? 100 years of track experience here on the screen over here. But
Yeah.
is this a time like both Brian and Schwab to experiment a little bit? Kind of play around with some of the formats of things and try some things that we never tried before, or it's been 20 years since we did some things.
Yeah, our group we've experimented and changed probably cross country and track and field through the years to where it's at now, to run meets efficiently and have a lot of kids participate and not be there for 20 hours on a day. This is challenging with all the restrictions.
Yeah.
But Brian, how about take those pod situations? Obviously, the divisional structure isn't a whole lot different than invitationals have been in the past as far as how you break down teams by divisions. The large school, smaller school, middle school, you've done that all over the years. But now you're going to have these actual pods. How do you anticipate this to work? And what kind of changes will you make, for instance, at the starting line and at the finish line that we haven't seen before?
Okay, well, there'll be no, the finish will be as wide as it is at the finish line. That's it, and the kids will go down, and we'll have officials like down in like you would like the old shoot, just saying to athletes, "Hey, go back to your team site. No standing here." We'll try to make the area of the finish line wide so that parents can't be right on the finish line. Encourage schools in our meet rules. We're going to tell the coaches, look, tell your kids when they're done racing to come back to your team area. And at the start, what we've decided to do is we're going to make corrals, and we'll number them, maybe wide enough to put 4 athletes on the line. So if a school has 20, freshman boys they want to run, they're going to be in corral number 1, and they're just going to be all lined up. We assume that if a school comes, all their athletes can be together. The coaches, they've been working together with their coach. So that's an assumption that we have to make. We're not going to take temperatures at the meet. That's the coach's job because that's what's mandated by the schools. So they do that. We don't, that's the aspect that when athlete comes to the meet, we're already assuming that they've been approved and by each school.
So one question comes about with regard to spectators. Obviously, cross country is about the only sport where spectators line the course and they're actually on the course line. Clearly, we're limited to 500 people in a site at one time. What are you going to do about those parents and spectators? How are you going to monitor them, or are you going to tell them they just can't be there?
Well, we're going to ask the coaches to tell them to stay home. I've already worked it out with Victor, who does our timing, that he'll be able to film the finish, and then, hey, Bale, and that will be put on mile split, probably the next day. So parents can see their, little Johnny and Sally finish the race.
But and obviously at Garrett Mountain, you'll be able to prevent them from coming inside the reservation, I would think, right?
That's a little more difficult because you don't know what busing's going to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
You still don't know if schools are coming up by busing, or they're going to ask mom and dad to drop them off at meets. And a lot of times Saturday meets, we have schools already that parents take them to the meet. So that's a little bit, when a parent drives up, if they cooperate, we ask them to stay home, they can. If we run the first meet and it's overwhelmed, we cancel. I mean, I have no problem, saying, hey, we're not doing it. I don't want to be the person that, all of a sudden is being sued or saying, hey, you're not following the rules. We'll bag the season.
Oh, well, I hope it doesn't come to that, Brian, but I know you don't either. I know how much both you and Mr. Schwartz adore the sport of cross and track and everything. And let's hope it all works out, Brian. Let's hope it all works out.
Sure do.
Thank you so much for your time. That was Indian Hills track coach Brian Rodak and the one and only Paul Schwartz from NorthJersey.com. And I believe we've got our technical difficulties finally sewed up. It was so funny because we had a great conversation with Dennis before we pressed the magic button. And then as soon as we hit the button to go live, poof, he's gone. His cool Rangers backdrop is gone now. His cool Lyndhurst jersey backdrop is gone now. But we do have the one and only Lyndhurst soccer coach, Dennis Jelcic. Dennis, are you there? Can you hear me? Are you there?
All good, Darren. Thank you so much for the welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. And my friend, my dear colleague, Sean Farrell is here. Oh, Sean, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Are we all good, Darren?
I hope so. You never know around this place. Dennis, what's the scene in Lyndhurst? What's it look like right now? What phase maybe are your guys in? What are you seeing? What's the attitude like in Lyndhurst land?
Positive thoughts right now, guys. Everything's positive, going full speed ahead, very carefully, and very excited to be back on the field. I know it was a tough spring for everybody. I know football's going well. I know cross country's doing well, volleyball, girls soccer, and we are back on the field as well. We're excited, obviously cautious, but our AD, Mr. Radigan, has done a terrific job, and our trainers and nurses have been outstanding for us so far. We're in phase one.
So, Dennis, we usually don't associate soccer with temperature checks and face masks, but here we are in 2020. How much different is practice this year compared to the usual years? What makes this year unique for you?
2 words: social distance.
Yeah.
That's changed the whole aspect of the sport. Right now, we're in cardio and very minimal training as far as touching a soccer ball. We haven't even been there yet. That's going to be next week because we want to make sure it's all correct and we follow all the guidelines and go forward properly. Practice has been no change, though. They're very upbeat. They're excited. They were anxious to get on the field, and they're really happy to be back. As I told Sean, we've spoken a few times. My guys never stopped. They worked out on their own. They had Zoom workouts. They did everything that you could expect from a high school athlete. Now they just got to follow rules that they've never been accustomed to, and some of us as adults have never seen before either. So it's a new world for everybody.
And people may not know a lot about Lyndhurst soccer. You took over in 2014. You've done a nice job, 5 straight winning seasons. What should the Bergen County soccer fan know about your program and your team this year? Because you certainly look pretty good.
Fire and hunger. It's definitely there. They're excited. They want to play soccer. They have nothing on their mind than to play. I've mentioned this to many people before. It's not all about state championships. It's about playing the sport and getting back on the field and back to normal. I think that's what we all have to realize, and that's the most important part. They are student athletes. They have a future. Their future is going to be bright. We just got to get through this little bump, and I call it a little bump because I don't want to give in too much that it's a big bump. But they're excited, and they're going to be, the word ferocious is I'm going to use right now, because they are very happy to be back on the field, and they're anxious to kick a soccer ball.
And we know at this point the Bergen County tournament is going to be postponed, possibly canceled. How would you like to see the season play out now that we know that that's probably not in the cards?
Our league, to me, is the number one priority. It's local teams. It's teams you play all the time. It's coaches you know all the time. It's kids you see all the time. That's what you want to get played. Number 2 is the state tournament if the county tournament's not there. If you can get all that played safely, then we are going to be in a good spot. I firmly believe that it can get done. Maybe I'm a positive believer too much. There are people that are, there's schools shutting down already, et cetera, for sports. But I would like to see the league at least played out as best as we can, and then the state tournament number 2. If the Bergen County tournament changes their mind, then we could sneak it in and somehow something happens and a miracle happens overnight, which has happened in other avenues before. Great. Bring back the county tournament. We'll play it in December if we have to during high school hockey or basketball. No problem.
We mentioned before that 2020 may be the year to experiment and try some different things. I think maybe we could try a real NJIC soccer tournament. I spoke to Stan Frasinski yesterday, the director of the NJIC. He said right now the plan is to play all the way through the division once. That'll take you through the first month, and then you have 2 open months. So I thought maybe you could have the 4 division winners play off like we see in football and wrestling. Would you be interested in something like that, the chance to be the top team in the NJIC?
Absolutely. It's something more soccer and more good soccer and excellent soccer, because this area, as we've spoken before and everybody knows, Bergen County soccer has gotten a lot better, and the NJIC has improved greatly over the last couple of years too. So we all know about the Big North. We know those big schools and all about that history, but the NJIC is coming around too. So anything to further the sport and make it interesting and make it fun and a good time, I'm 100% in for.
And right now, the SIAA said the maximum regular season number of games would be 14. You feel like that's a fair amount of the season? It's similar to what you've had before. Are you happy with that number?
I was excited when I heard that number, because normally for me it's 18. So to hear 12 to 14, I'm excited, because let's be honest, if you have a bad week of weather, you could lose 4 games that you may not be able to make up and only have 14. We've seen teams in the state tournament that have played 12 or 13 games because that's the minimum, because of the weather, because of scheduling, because of late school. So when I heard 14, I jumped out of my seat. I said, that's great. I thought we were getting 6, 8, or 10. So if we get to 14, that's outstanding. And you may be even, I hate to say the words independent, but you may be able to sneak in some independent games. I had 2 big ones on the schedule that I had to postpone now, but maybe we can sneak them in somehow if there's room. And like I said, a miracle overnight or everything goes well. So,
Coach, I got a question about, one of the things that's been whispered about and talked about a lot by coaches and athletic directors lately has been the concept of moving the fall to the spring, essentially, trying to wedge in the fall season in March, April, maybe a little bit of May. My personal feeling is it doesn't quite work for me on a personal level. I don't know if it works in North Jersey because of the weather and the fields and everything. I'm sure you've heard this plan. What do you think about the possibility of ever playing soccer? If I told you, March and April, you get to play March 15th.
I know 2 guys right off the bat that are going to hate me when I say this: our football coach, Richie Tuero, and our baseball coach, Patty O'Teary, because they're big in their sports. I think you can do it. But like I said, like you're saying, the weather is a major factor. The fields are a major factor. And let's be honest, 1 huge snowstorm throws you off completely. 2 huge snowstorms eliminates the entire idea. I mean, we all know how we shut down for snowstorms in the past or bad weather. It can be done. It's just, I think you're dropping to less than a number of games that would be fair. I mean, football's already down to a low number. I'm sure some coaches are saying it's already too low. So what are you giving them, 5 or 6 games instead in the spring? Is soccer dropping to 9 or 8? And is baseball, instead of 24 or 26 is the number, I believe, dropping to 12? I don't know. Do you go past June, which has been experimented with other tournaments? I'm sure that's been talked about too. I don't know. I would love to know how that would be done, and would like to be in the room for that discussion. That's interesting, though, for sure.
And Dennis, you made a great point earlier when you told me what you do on the field matters a lot this year, but what you do off the field matters maybe even more. I was wondering if you could just share your COVID conversation with your team. What was your message to them? Because I think it applies to everyone.
So I'll give you a quick background story. I know we don't have much time, but I'll share it. I was in Europe this summer, and I did my whole quarantine thing when I came back. And the last couple of years, I learned a lot about sports and soccer in Europe. And I take some of that stuff back. And positivity is the number 1 word that I've been trying to use with my team and sports. So I'm sitting around, and we all know the NHL is in a bubble currently, and I'm watching a game one afternoon, and SportsCenter comes on later. I kind of had one of those afternoons where I fell asleep on the couch, and Nick Saban pops up, and he says, we can do all the right things on the field. It's what these guys do off the field that we've got to concern ourselves with, and that's the talk we've had with my team. That's the first thing I said when I got to camp this Tuesday. We started on Tuesday. Today was day 2 for me. I told them right after practice. I even said it during practice. I had some, 6 to 8 foot conversations with guys. I said, listen, I go, we talk about parties and pool parties and hanging out with your friends late at night when we have a game the next morning on a Saturday or something, or school the next day. We always talk about it in the past. Now it's even bigger because now you're putting not only yourself at risk, your family, your team, your program, your school. You could be putting an entire NJIC division at risk, a sport possibly, just by that one party. It's so minuscule, but it's so big right now, and it's so hard to get through their heads. They're teenagers. I'll be honest. We're adults, and some of us want to go out and have indoor dining and indoor sports. And
go to the gym.
What's that?
And I want to go to the gym. Yeah,
I want to see a Ranger game. I mean, let's be honest. I want to go to a game, but they're kids, and I say it every day. I said it again today. Reminder, guys, let's do the right thing. If you have a pool in your backyard, go cool off. No reason to invite 20 of your friends over. And, the magic word is drinking or substance abuse, etc. I hate even using the terms, but let's be honest. It's not legal. So we shouldn't be talking about it, but we're in a situation, and we're in 2020. Let's face it, that'll be the thing we're saying 20 years from now. We live through 2020. That's where we're at, and you got to talk about it and make them realize there's that one kid that you could get through to that gets through to 20 kids that says, listen, this is real. Let's not fool around with this. Let's try to, make it real for everybody. Let's get to the state tournament final. Let's get to the NJIC tournament that Sean's mentioning. Let's get to winter sports and ice hockey and basketball starting on time instead of saying, okay, let's move everything to January or February or March. Let's do the right thing. I think this is a real experiment for everybody, social and personal, and I'm really interested and excited to see where it goes. I've talked to my kids. I have great captains. They lead by example. They do the right things. It's a matter of getting the other guys under control, and from what I see right now, I could just tell looking into their eyes, because I held the seniors back last. After I spoke to my team, I said, listen, guys, I go, we have 2 senior captains. We have 10 seniors. We have a lot of guys returning. It should be a good season for us, no matter what happens towards the end. Let's do the right thing. This is the year. And I looked into every one of their eyes. I hope we got to them. There's a few that I know I got to already. There's a few that I know have done the whole partying thing, like to go out, have a good time. Maybe we could through them. Maybe that'll change them and change us and change sports for the next 6 months, where we can say to Governor Murphy, we got through all of this. We really got through it.
And on a side note, we just saw the Last Dance World Series with 222 teams boil down to 2 and then 1 state champion. If we can't get a fall season through the NJSIAA, could you see something like that coming to high school soccer?
Name the place, name the time, and let's get some teams into it if that's the last case scenario. I hope we never get to that. No offense to the Last Dance baseball. That was outstanding. I did watch on updates and all sorts of stuff on the internet as I was away, as I told you, but I was flabbergasted by having 222 teams compete in a tournament like that and get through it with really no major issues. Let's be honest. And, having Governor Murphy there, I believe he threw out the first pitch in one of the games, or maybe the championship game, and realizing that it's getting done the right way and proving that it can get done. We were all a little antsy about it at first. I'm sure there's baseball coaches out there. I'm sure Coach Altieri from Lyndhurst was a little bit nervous about it after June 30th and stuff because of guidelines and rules, but they got through it, and I'm very happy that those seniors, those coaches, and those teams got to do it safely, got through it. No major weather issues, which is really outstanding. And they did it right before the big hurricane came. So they got it in.
And then the last thing for me, and I'll turn it back to Darren. Denis, you're an optimistic guy. How hopeful are you that we actually get this season going?
I think it gets going. It's a matter of how far it goes and how right we do things. You've seen teams shut down already, sports and schools. I'm going to be optimistic and say we get through it all, because that's just how I think and how I feel. And I want to see Lyndhurst football. I want to see Lyndhurst soccer. I want to see Lyndhurst cross country, Lyndhurst volleyball, and other towns too. I just want to see it get through and say, you know what, 2020 might have been a a disaster from March to July, but we got through it, and we made Bergen County sports worthwhile and everything in Jersey worthwhile, and let the other states follow our lead.
Well put, Dennis. I echo your sentiments. I feel the same way. I feel like we're going to start, then let's wait and see what happens.
We'll have some hiccups, and we'll go from there.
We will. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for your time today. I'm fired up after talking to you.
Good. I'm excited, too. I can't wait. My guys, I can't wait to see them tomorrow morning. I'll let them know I spoke to Darren Cooper, Sean Farrell, and 2 legends from track and cross country right before me. So I'm excited.
Thank you, Sean. Good to talk to you. And that
Thank you,
wraps us
guys.
up here from the Varsity Aces World Headquarters. My name is Darren Cooper. I want to thank our earlier guest, Mr. Paul Schwartz, and Indian Hills track legend, meet director, the one and only Brian Rodak. That'll wrap things up. Remember, let the players play, the coaches coach, and the officials officiate. Let the Varsity Aces tell you what you need to know. Good night, everybody.